Elias Carter's boots crunched over the frost-hardened soil, each step echoing through the narrow canyon like a drumbeat of forewarning. The mountains had been quiet for decades, at least, that's what his sensors claimed. Yet something about the air tonight was wrong. The wind carried an undertone of vibration, a low, rhythmic hum that resonated not through the eardrums, but deep in the bones. Elias froze. Then came the roar. It wasn't distant thunder. It wasn't the echo of collapsing rock. It was alive. It rolled across the cliffs, a living, deliberate sound that shook the stones beneath his feet. Elias' heart leapt, equal parts fear and exhilaration. Dragons weren't supposed to exist, at least not in any form humans had recorded for centuries. Yet here, in this hidden corner of the world, the impossible had landed squarely in his path. Ahead, a figure emerged from the twilight mist. Massive wings, scaled and iridescent under the last rays of the sun, unfolded like sails of some ancient ship. Its head was noble, eyes gleaming gold with intelligence that made Elias' rational mind stumble. The dragon regarded him with cautious curiosity, nostrils flaring, each exhale a plume of vapor tinged with the scent of sulfur and wild fire. Elias swallowed, keeping his hands raised, not as a threat, but in acknowledgement. I'm not here to hurt you, he called, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. I want to help. If you'll let me. The dragon's wings twitched, stirring a gust that nearly knocked him off his feet. Behind it, dozens more dragons stirred, circling the mountaintop like living satellites. Some were small, nimble, and bird-like in proportion, while others bore the imposing bulk of legends. Each pair of eyes held a question, and perhaps judgment, in a language unspoken but entirely understood. Then came the words, not audible, but felt, a vibration through his skull, as if the air itself carried thought. We need your help. Elias blinked, unsure if exhaustion or reality had fractured his senses. You speak? A subtle nod. Not as you do. But you understand. His training as a xenobiologist kicked in, a calm washing over the initial shock. All right. Then let's talk. But first tell me, what's wrong? A smaller dragon, no larger than a human teenager, limped forward, scales marred with fresh cuts, a wing bent at an unnatural angle. The lead dragon's eyes glimmered with anguish. The smaller one's chest rose and fell with labored breaths. Elias crouched instinctively, examining the wound. It was deep, yet clean, no teeth marks. What did this? He asked quietly. The dragon's answer was a low rumble, vibrating through the rock. A shadow moves through our valley. It strikes without warning. It is not of flesh alone. Elias' pulse quickened. A predator, yes, but something beyond natural law, a hybrid, mechanical or alien, perhaps. The possibilities raced through his mind, each darker than the last. I can help. I have tools, knowledge. I can figure this out. But I'll need time and cooperation. The lead dragon studied him as if weighing the very essence of humanity itself. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, it lowered its head in a gesture that Elias recognized from centuries of studying animals. Trust, fragile but real. Time is short, it rumbled. They come again. Soon. The smaller dragon whimpered and nudged closer to Elias, sensing safety in his presence. His hand hovered above the injured creature, and the dragon did not flinch. All right, Elias said firmly. I'll help. Tell me everything you know. Night fell swiftly, painting the valley in shades of deep violet. Stars shimmered overhead, indifferent witnesses to an alliance no human had ever forged before. The dragons communicated in vibrations and thought, and Elias listened, piecing together fragments. Strange fires that scorched without burning, unnatural movements across the land, creatures that were neither dragon nor man, yet bore traits of both. Why us? Elias asked finally, sitting on a rock near the injured dragon. Why come to a single human? The answer came without hesitation. You are clever. You survive where others fail. You understand. Elias' lips twitched in an ironic smile. Clever, maybe? Understanding? That remained to be seen. Yet the dragons had no choice, or perhaps no better choice. Then we start tomorrow, he said, finally letting the tension ease from his shoulders. We assess, we plan, and we fight back. Together. The dragons murmured among themselves, low vibrations reverberating like a distant storm. Even Elias could sense it, approval, hope, and wariness tangled together in their chorus. This was no mere pact. It was the fragile beginning of a battle that could decide survival, not just for dragons, but for every life bound to this hidden valley. Then came movement in the shadows. A flicker, subtle yet deliberate. Elias stiffened. The lead dragon's ears twitched, wings bristling with tension. They watch. It whispered, not aloud, but in a vibration that rattled the air. Prepare. Night brings their first strike. Elias' mind raced. Tools, traps, tactics, but most of all, trust. If he failed, the dragons would perish. If he succeeded, humanity might learn something profound, that courage, ingenuity, and empathy could bridge the impossible. He looked at the injured dragon again, then at the towering figure before him. We'll face it, he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. And we'll survive. The wind carried the faintest whisper, a vibration like promise, together. And in that moment, Elias understood. The impossible had arrived. And it had chosen him. Elias awoke to a valley alive with subtle, eerie movements. Mist clung to jagged cliffs like ghostly tendrils, and phosphorescent flora cast faint, greenish glows over the rocky terrain. Every shadow seemed deliberate, every rustle a warning. He shivered, though not from cold. This was anticipation, a prelude to the storm that had begun long before he arrived. The lead dragon, a massive creature he had come to know as Kale, descended from the ridge with silent grace, wings folding neatly against his shoulders. Elias had learned that Kale's patience was as formidable as his fire. He nodded once, and Elias followed, descending toward the valley's heart where the smaller dragons clustered protectively around their young. They've moved again. Kale vibrated through the air, a deep, resonant rumble. They leave traces, but they are clever. We are hunted. Elias studied the signs. Scorched soil, shallow indentations in rock, unnatural fissures that suggested both weight and speed. Predator tracks, he murmured. Not entirely organic. Some mechanical traces. Could be drones, maybe automated hunting tools. Or something more advanced. Kale's eyes narrowed. Human words strange, but correct. We feel it. They come from the north. Elias nodded, already formulating a plan. Then we need information, and quickly. I can set sensors, capture data, learn how it moves. He glanced at the small dragon with the injured wing, perched close to him. The creature tilted its head, scales glinting in the dim light, as if urging him to hurry. They ventured deeper into the valley. Towers of rock formed natural corridors, their jagged peaks cradling pools of crystal-clear water. Bioluminescent plants painted the caves in blues and purples, their soft glow illuminating hieroglyphic-like markings on stone walls, ancient traces of dragon culture. Elias marveled, snapping photos and taking readings, but Kale's vibration urged focus. No time for wonder. Danger approaches. Move carefully. The first encounter came swiftly. From the shadows, a distorted figure emerged, tall, insect-like limbs fused with metallic plating, eyes glowing a cold red. It moved like a predator, silent but deliberate, surveying the valley with a calculated menace. Elias froze, recognizing his hypothesis. Not merely a natural beast, but a hybrid, a combination of biology and technology. Kale shifted, wings bristling. They test us. Observe. Strike only when weakness shows. Elias whispered. We can't let it learn too much. We need traps, distractions, something unexpected. His mind raced, calculating leverage points in the terrain, places where rocks could collapse, where scent and sound could mislead. The dragons watched him with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. You humans are fragile, Kale's vibration warned. But clever, perhaps our advantage. The smaller dragons, sensing Elias' resolve, flitted around him, agile and fearless. Elias felt a pang of connection. These creatures, so alien yet so aware, were beginning to trust him. "All right," he said aloud. "We work together. I think I understand your movement, your instincts, your patterns. But we need coordination." Kale lowered his head. "Teach us, human." For the next hours, Elias instructed the dragons on basic strategy, using gestures, vocal cues, and the vibrations Kale allowed him to sense. They practiced ambush formations in hidden caves, circling through natural corridors, relying on both their aerial advantage and his calculated placements of rocks and improvised sensors. The small dragon with the injured wing, whom Elias named Leora, tested its limits under his guidance, learning to dodge and twist through narrow gaps. As night fell, they settled near a cliff pool. Elias hunched over schematics, running calculations by lamplight, while the dragons rested uneasily, wings twitching, eyes scanning. "Why would they hunt you?" Elias asked quietly, to Kale alone. "They are not of this land. They do not respect life as we know it. They seek something hidden within our kind. A resource to harvest, perhaps a weapon. We do not know. But they follow and they adapt." Elias frowned. The implications were staggering. This was not a simple predator. It was a tactical hunter with intelligence, possibly guided by humans or other entities with far-reaching agendas. "Then they are testing us," he murmured. "Learning our behavior. That means we can trick them, mislead them, turn their intelligence against them." The night grew colder, yet the tension kept them awake. Then came the first strike. Shadows moved along the cliffs above. Elias saw the glint of metal under moonlight. The hybrid predator had returned, faster, smarter, with multiple appendages slicing through the mist. The dragon surged forward, claws and teeth meeting mechanical limbs, wings creating gusts that destabilized its footing. Elias flung a makeshift net, weighted and laced with sensors, entangling one of its limbs. Sparks flew as the predator reeled. Yet it was not subdued. It vanished into the night, retreating with precision, leaving only scorched footprints and the stench of ozone. Kale landed heavily beside Elias. "Clever," the dragon rumbled. "Your tricks, effective. But the shadow will adapt. We must be faster. Stronger. Smarter." Elias looked at Leora, who had flitted close, unafraid. "And you," he said gently, "are going to lead us in ways we couldn't imagine. Every move you make counts. You teach me, I teach you. We survive together." Kale's vibration softened, a hint of approval. "Perhaps this is the bond we needed. Not only strength, but intelligence. Not only fire, but cunning." By dawn, Elias had mapped potential ambush sites, noted predator movement patterns, and reinforced the dragon's natural instincts with strategies drawn from human ingenuity. For the first time, the dragons allowed him close to their heart of the valley, sharing whispers of their ancient lore, their songs of battle and survival. It was mesmerizing, history alive, flowing through scales and wings. Yet amidst the all, the shadow lingered. Elias knew the predator would return, smarter, more dangerous. Tomorrow would demand more than courage. It would demand unity, creativity, and trust that could bridge the gap between species. Standing at the edge of the cliff, Elias inhaled the crisp air, feeling the hum of dragon vibrations coursing through him. He had entered a world few humans could imagine, faced creatures of legend, and survived the first trial. But the real test was still ahead. Kale's eyes met his. "We strike together," the dragon rumbled, a promise more than a command. "Or we fall apart." Elias nodded. "Together," he echoed, determination hardening his voice. "No matter what comes, we fight together. And we win." The valley held its breath, waiting. And somewhere in the darkness, the shadow watched, calculating its next move. The valley dawned in uneasy silence, broken only by the distant hum of mechanical movement and the occasional rustle of wings. Elias Carter stood at the edge of a cliff, overlooking the northern pass, the same route the predator had used twice before. He tightened the straps on his utility belt, feeling the weight of tools, sensors, and makeshift traps. Beside him, Kale and the other dragons shifted, wings tensed, muscles coiled. Every scale and sinew radiated anticipation, an unspoken readiness for the battle that had been brewing since the night Elias first entered the valley. "They are coming!" Kale's vibration thrummed through the cliff, a low, powerful rumble that resonated in Elias' chest. "Faster! They have learned from yesterday." Elias nodded. "Then we evolve faster. We use everything at our disposal. Terrain, speed, fire, and ingenuity." He motioned to Leora, the small dragon with the injured wing who had recovered enough to fly in short bursts. "You'll lead some of them through the upper passes. Draw them in. We'll trap them in the lower canyon. Ready?" Leora chirped, a sharp, musical vibration. Her confidence had grown overnight, a testament to Elias' guidance and the dragon's resilience. She leapt into the sky, wings slicing through the thin morning mist, leading the smaller dragons in a complex maneuver that would have taken humans hours to plan. Elias smiled despite the tension. This was why dragons mattered, not just strength, but instinct sharpened by intelligence. The first strike came with sudden precision. From the northern pass, the hybrid predator emerged, limbs glinting with metal under the rising sun, eyes cold and calculating. It moved with terrifying efficiency, avoiding obvious traps, scanning the valley like a hunter analyzing prey patterns. Elias activated his sensors, sending a pulse that would track its movements, and relay data to Kale mid-flight. "Now!" he shouted, throwing a weighted net across a narrow ledge. It wrapped around one of the predator's limbs, sparks flying, but the creature twisted violently, breaking free. The dragons surged forward. Kale's roar split the air, wings generating gusts that unbalanced the predator, while smaller dragons darted in, claws and tails coordinating with Elias' traps. The hybrid creature adapted immediately, striking back with a mix of brute force and mechanical precision. Metal limbs scraped against rock, sending shards flying. Elias ducked behind a boulder, activating a sensor-driven distraction that emitted electromagnetic pulses. The predator hesitated, scanning for the source, and that brief pause was all Kale needed. A powerful wing strike sent it staggering backward into a narrow gorge preset with traps, rocks rolling and smoke rising in controlled chaos. "Keep moving!" Elias shouted, adrenaline sharpening his focus. He sprinted down the cliffside, placing small traps along the creature's retreat path, wires, weighted nets, and improvised flares to confuse and corral it. Each step was precise, calculated, a human mind working in tandem with Dragon's raw power and intuition. The battle escalated as the predator split into multiple drones, each advancing with singular purpose. Elias' breath came in controlled bursts. "Kale, split them! Leora, up a ridge! Drive them into the canyon!" Leora darted upward, agile and swift, leading a small group of drones into a maze of cliffs, where their movements were limited, and their mechanical limbs risked snagging. Kale and the larger dragons focused on the remaining forces, using fire, claws, and aerial maneuvers to disrupt and disable them. Sparks and smoke painted the valley in chaos, yet Elias' mind stayed calm, observing patterns, predicting next moves, and coordinating every strike. Suddenly, a new realization struck him. The hybrid predator wasn't acting independently, it was being guided. Someone, or something, had been directing it all along. "They're not random!" Elias yelled, dodging a swipe from a drone. "It's controlled! Find the source!" Kale growled, wings folding and spreading as he maneuvered to intercept another attack. "Then we cut the head of the serpent," the dragon rumbled. "Or we all fall." Using a combination of human ingenuity and dragon instincts, Elias devised a final strategy. He lured the main predator into a trap, an old cavern with collapsible rock formations, rigged with sensors and weighted mechanisms. Kale and the largest dragons drove it forward, wings beating, fire illuminating the entrance. The predator resisted, but Elias' calculations held true. With a precise strike, the cavern collapsed behind it, sealing it temporarily, while smaller drones were caught in nets or diverted into dead ends. Exhausted but exhilarated, Elias landed beside Kale. The valley was quiet now, save for the hum of displaced air and the dragon's low vibrations of victory. "We did it," he said, though his voice carried more relief than triumph. "For now." Kale's eyes met his. "Temporary victory. But humans, you are clever. You learn. You adapt. Perhaps you are not so fragile after all." Elias laughed softly, wiping sweat and soot from his brow. "I survive because I have allies. That's what humans do. We adapt, and we fight for what matters." The smaller dragons gathered around Leora, chirping in high, melodic vibrations. She nudged Elias gently, a gesture of trust and gratitude. He knelt, running a hand over her sleek scales. "And you," he whispered, "taught me more than I could have imagined." As the sun rose fully, illuminating the valley, Elias and the dragons surveyed the damage. The predator was contained, but its presence left a lingering question: who, or what, had orchestrated the hunt? Kale's scales shimmered under the morning light, a symbol of resilience and ancient wisdom. Elias turned to the dragon. "Whatever comes next," he said firmly, "we face it together. Not as human and dragon, but as one force." Kale's rumble resonated deep in the air, a low vibration that Elias felt in his chest. "Together," the dragon echoed. "Always." Far above, Leora soared, scanning the horizon. The valley seemed to breathe, alive with anticipation, aware that this alliance, fragile yet formidable, was now a force to reckon with. Elias knew the fight was far from over, that threats beyond imagination might challenge them again. Yet for the first time, he felt the unshakable truth: when humans and dragons combined intellect and instinct, courage and strategy, there was nothing, no shadow, no predator, no darkness, that could break them. As Elias watched, the valley shimmered in the morning light. It was a world of legends, of possibilities, of a future that could only be reached by daring to believe in the impossible. And in that moment, amid scales, fire, and human determination, Elias understood the bond he had formed, an alliance that would endure, and perhaps change everything. The shadow may still linger, but the light of this alliance burned brighter. And together, human and dragon, they would face whatever came next.